I ain't like that half-dead clap. Welcome to Barbados Workers Union 2024 May Day. If you're having a good time, say yay! No, that sounds better. Imagine time has flown and we are into another May Day season. It almost feels like just a few minutes ago, a few weeks ago, we were congregated here for May Day 2023, celebrating under the theme, It's About You. And that theme, It's About You, has become such a brand across Barbados. Not only across the Barbados Workers Union, but across Barbados that we had to do it twice. So this year, we came back not only under the theme, It's About You, but what is the theme for this year's celebration? Want to know what's the theme for this year? It's about you. It's about you. It's about you. And that too also means that this year we are into part 2. But today is May Day. Today is a day where we celebrate workers, not only in Barbados, but we celebrate workers across the world. Today is a day where we pay tribute to our blood, sweat, and tears. Of course, we pay tribute historically because we cast our minds back to what we can call the mother of May Day celebrations, which took place back in Chicago, and I believe it was back in 1886, over 100 years ago, where workers gathered in Chicago in what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. And what were they protesting? They were standing up, they were fighting for better conditions of work. They were fighting for better hours of work. Do you see the similarities with where we are today? I'm speaking about 138 years ago, where workers, not in Barbados at that time, but workers in Chicago were fighting for better conditions of work, better hours of work. But what started off as a peaceful protest of workers who just saw themselves and wanted more for themselves turned out into an event where workers died. Workers were killed, and many more workers were injured. And that is because at that time, police and the powers that be were not happy to see workers taking a stand for themselves. So what they did is they started throwing tear gas. They started doing a number of things to disrupt peaceful protests. And the result was that a number of workers died and many more workers were injured. May Day also takes place at a time in Barbados when we are in what we call the emancipation season. The season of emancipation was launched on the 13th of April this year. And in this season of emancipation, we reflect a lot. We reflect on where we have come from as a people. We reflect on our struggle as a people, not only in what I spoke about being the mother of May Day celebrations, but we reflect on our struggle of history. Some people don't like to hear us going back to the days of slavery because a number of us, it would seem, have gotten her up and better off. And we want to disconnect with where we come from. But in the labor movement, we always push the message that if you don't recall where you come from, it becomes very difficult for you to have an appreciation of where you are. That is when you look back to see the distance that you've traveled. And it becomes even harder for you to have an appreciation of where you need to go and what we need to do collectively to get there. So in this season of emancipation, in its third week, we celebrate workers in a big day on May the 1st. And there are some that will want to say to us, in the Barbados Workers Union that this rally is no longer important. Up to this morning, I had someone telling me, man, people only want to hear music and stuff. A rally is not a time for people to be hearing speeches and all of that. But if you don't want to hear speeches, you have the option not to be here during the time that we are giving speeches. But we in the trade union movement can never miss the opportunity to remind you that for us it's not all about fun and dance. It's not about the entertainment which you will be enjoying. You have been enjoying during the day. It's not about the musical entertainment that you will be enjoying shortly after I speak. But we have to take pause. We have to give pause, because if at no other time of the year you see yourselves and you see your worth, May Day is the season, and May 1st is the day for you to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize that you have worth, and in your labor is dignity. And you should be able to look at yourself and say, I deserve it. And in the Barbados Workers Union, we are never going to miss the opportunity to remind you as a body of workers that there is dignity in work, there is dignity in your labor, and in the same way our forebears have worked over the years to ensure that they laid a platform of development for all of us to build on, and so that we can enjoy the Barbados that we are enjoying today, we have a responsibility to be the foundation layers for those who are to come. So that is what May Day is about. I remind you that we are celebrating under the theme, It's About You, It's About You Part 2. And my mind goes back. I promised them that I would not be long this year. I promise you that now. My mind goes back to last year's May Day. And one of the topics that I touched last May Day related to the workers in the hotel sector. How many people recall me standing here and recalling a time back in 2020 when we were in the midst of what? COVID. And the hotel workers of Barbados came beseeching, or I should say went beseeching the government. And then they came beseeching the workers in the hotel sector and their representatives. And in beseeching us, they were coming with the bonds of solidarity. I never saw so much togetherness being spoken in a room by a group of hoteliers until then. It was, like how we always hear the saying, we in this together, we is we. All of those messages were being heard. And we were being asked to consider what it would be if there was a Barbados that could not have tourism to rely on for support. And against our better judgment, and I say this, I admit it, it's not the first time I have, let me say, against our better thinking of the honesty and the integrity of that group as a body, because all of them in bad, and you hear me say it, all of them in bad, but too many of them in the good. And we recall that group as a body coming to us and speaking to us, and although we were not inclined for their sakes to accede to the request they had, we felt compelled for the sake of this country to give our country a fighting chance so that after tourism, we could rebound. And so there was the BEST program. The BEST program is a program under which government invested dollars, public dollars, to ensure that workers in the industry, although the planes then landing in Barbados, nothing really wasn't going on, but that workers in the sector could go into their workplaces, and although they won't be serving people, they could be participating in activities that would build up the country and position it where we could be better after COVID. So there was supposed to be digitizing, there was supposed to be greening, there was supposed to be the training of workers to ensure that post-COVID, or even if not post, but when this country was good enough that we can open our doors and welcome people back here, that we would have been opening our doors and we would be better for it. And they took the money. Some of them, not all. But after COVID created enough distance, or we created enough distance from it, that it was no longer a threat, what did we observe? We saw repealing of conditions that stood in 60 years of a collective agreement. So uniforms, we saw staunch days, we saw meal allowance, we saw service charge, all of that going out through the window and through the door, and entered contract work in an industry that we know is seasonal, but offering people 3-month contracts so that people had no security in their employment. We promise you, the workers of Barbados, particularly you who are frontline workers, back in 2020 May Day, when we could not do this, but we had to stream it on television and online, and we promise you that we would never let people forget the dignity and the worth that every single member has, every single worker has, particularly those who had to face the front line. And that is what we committed, and that is what we did. So you would have recognized that last year, after signaling it here for you at May Day, the Barbados Workers Union launched a campaign under the broad theme, It's About You, and under a sub-theme, Recipe for Respect. And a number of you have been coming to us and asking, but you're focusing on the hotel workers, though, what about us? And we told you that we could never be successful if we have all our tentacles all over the place at once. But we were starting with the hotel sector, because it is with the hotel sector that we had the largest representative group of workers and disadvantaged workers. And we felt that if we started there and we were successful there, that momentum would build and we would spread into other areas. And I want you here at Botanical Gardens, and I want you who are hearing this presentation wherever it is streamed, I want you to join me in a loud applause as we big up the workers in the hotel sector in Barbados. No, you can do better than that, because these workers made good. They made good on our call to action. It was a call to action that said, look at yourself in the mirror first and see your worth. Then I want you to look at your brothers and sisters around you. All of them not strong. Some of them will be weak and shy away. But those of you who are strongest among the group, we are going to pull along the rest, because we remembered and we realized that enough was enough. And it was time for not only hotel workers, but the people of Barbados to see them, feel them, and treat them as they themselves would wish to be treated. And because of the steadfastness of a group of workers who believed in themselves and who believed in the power of It's About You, and who supported the call and the rally that their unity is the strength, not only of them as a group, but of the people, the members of the Barbados Workers Union and the people of Barbados at large. They joined us, and we launched a very successful campaign, so that in February I felt proud as Peach when workers of the hotel sector were meeting me on the grounds of Parliament to hold my hand and walk up the steps of Parliament with me to witness what would be land breaking, what would be a landmark in our industrial relations process, and to see a time where government joined the workers of Barbados in support of a position that said this industry, that is the hotel sector, is one that benefits most from a lot of concessions around Barbados. And if you were going to benefit from the public purse, you had obligation to the public of Barbados, first and foremost to the lambs that work in that sector. And in February, we were successfully able to see passed in both the lower and upper houses of the Parliament of Barbados a Labour Concessions Act. And the minister spoke about it a while ago, and I'm not going to go over it. But basically, while it does not touch every hotel unless they benefit from concessions, we know that it touches enough and it will touch the rest. And so, Minister of Labour, I thank you for joining us here today and for speaking to us as passionately as you did. But we recognize that the journey is far from over. The Labour Concessions Act is just a piece of legislation, and we have to go further to make good on it. And in going further, that requires you, Mr. Minister, to come forward on the floor of Parliament very shortly with a ministerial statement that will set out the minimum standards that these workers in the hotel sector fought for, especially during the months of June to December last year. And those minimum standards can only and should only reflect what has been agreed by the BHTA and the BWU in collective agreement as the minimum standards of decency for the sector for 60 years plus. And any departure from that, Mr. Minister, we suggest would represent a departure from what we stand for and the fight that was taken up by the workers in the hotel sector, particularly since June last year. Hotels is not the only area that we saw success. Hotels is not the only area where we saw consolidation and growth in the Barbados Workers Union. And I thank you, not only the workers in the hotel sector, not only the workers in our other divisions, but I thank you, the general public, for supporting the cause of workers. You see, very often, there are detractors who will try to steal your focus away from what the issue really is. There are those who will want to make it about Toni Moore. There are those who will want to make it about the Barbados Workers Union being aligned with the government. Although we all know that it was never anything new for the Barbados Workers Union to be aligned with the government in power. It has been an earmark and a feature of our history. But as they try to distract your focus, what they are intent on doing is shifting your focus away from the injustice at hand. And I therefore want to thank you, the members of the public, who heard the cries not only of the union, but who heard the cries of the workers themselves. And you saw the faces of the workers themselves. And you not only joined our campaign with your words of support, but many of you joined in tangible support as well. And I want to say a very special thank you. And as I say that thank you, I want to also applaud the workers in many of our divisions. Some of them you have seen participating in industrial action, but not only those, because industrial action is only what the public sees. But what you don't see are the many hours and the effort of many other workers who are able to rally around their cause and talk through issues to success. While industrial action will put us in the public space, that is not the approach that we still prefer to reach the success that we want. We rather talk through the issues first. But there comes a point in time when in talk you feel that people take you for granted. And you have to do something about it. And when it is time to do something about it, the Barbados Workers Union is there. And Sister Redmond, we don't do like some of those who may call for unity as a shot across the bow, telling you come home and so on, but don't really support workers. We don't do as those who have unity in their name, but cause more disruption in this country than unity. We don't march workers up and down, where at the end of the day, workers lose their wages and still don't get what they're supposed to be fighting for. When the Barbados Workers Union is outside, we are outside, and we win. There is never a moment, and none since my 10 years of becoming General Secretary, and none in my 20 years of being a member of staff at the Barbados Workers Union, and none from the history I have read or have been told that suggests that when the Barbados Workers Union is out there with a cause, that we lose. So I want you to listen carefully to me. I've reflected a little on last year. And I want to tell you something about what we will be doing this year. I'm going to ask you some questions. Can you imagine, as a group of workers, where you have been in discussions with your employer? An employer known in Barbados to be one of the worst, and that is without deceit. But you have been in discussion with this employer year after year, meeting after meeting. And you finally get the employer to move from a position where they offer you nothing in a wage increase, and the employer has some movement. They move from 0% plus 0% plus 0% in a 3-year agreement to 0% plus 2 days pay. I pause because I want y'all to understand what I just said. After months of negotiation, they move from 0% plus 0% plus 0% to 0% plus 2 days pay. Where a day's pay is not defined because your work is hourly. I want to ask you how you would feel. I want to ask you how you would feel if you see workers of that company standing up for their rights under the law because health and safety conditions are in shambles. And when you see the workers who stood up for their rights under the law, Minister, is it Section 104 of the Health and Safety Act, where workers stood up for themselves and the workers get sent home. I want to ask you how you will feel if you witness employees, co-workers from your company being terminated for thieving and nothing gets steal. I got a feeling, and I try not to hear asides. In my line of work, I try not to listen to asides by hearing some. And I feel that there are some of you who have a feeling that you know who I might be talking to. I know Shane is in the audience. And Shane, you may receive a reply that you think you like, but when they ain't gonna get me to call it, so Shane might have something to give you if he thinks your answer sound good. What company you think I mean? Oh shoot, I can't call that. I can't call that, or I can't call the name of any company, because I remember after June 30th last year when a set of workers had to come outside. And after hours and hours and hours of talk and everything, and inspectors going into places and all that, A black man came up to me in a line as a black woman. A black man came up to me and he said, how do you really feel about yourself as a black woman undermining another black woman in business who is only trying to make a living? I didn't know that I made any vows with the Barbados Workers Union not to undermine people in business, whether they're black or white or pink or whatever. I know that my mission and my call to service has to do with representing the underclass and the underprivileged and those who on their own have no voice. I'm also mindful of the fact that in the line of service that I'm engaged in, that there are many that call you a sellout when all you are doing is your best. But that's a subject for another day. But I back to the story where a black man coming to me, a black woman, telling me about undermining another black woman in business. And I had a few things to say to him, because he's be about the radio too. And I know that people, no offense to the media, but I know the media don't always get it right. And people on the radio and so might say things that they think they know, but they don't really know. So he got one thing right. She was black, I am black. But not like me. Because my service is to people, I don't do people so I don't undermine people. And also I am not in business, I am in service, and I'm in service to all of you. But that company is one among a number as we expand our campaign under the theme, It's About You, Recipe of Respect, that we will depend on you, the members of the public, to play your role as well. And I'm going to tell you how, and I'm going to keep it simple. You cannot believe that you are in support of a group of workers who are working day on day, a full day's work that is putting in, and they're only getting a part-time pay. You cannot believe that you're supporting workers where you know their conditions are subpar, you know their conditions are substandard, but you are still supporting that company. Imagine if you, a worker, turn up to the NIS having an injury or haven't been employed, and you hear from the NIS when the payments ain't coming in from you, for you. And this is the kind of activity that this company is engaged with. It is called fraud, because if you are not paying to the national insurance, the NISSS now, if you're not paying your national insurance, and you're likely not paying your taxes either, what is that? That is public money that could be spent on other things that now has to be examine and see if it will become a write-off or how you're going to garnish to get back what is yours. And members of the public have a role. Today is not the day for that, but I want you to stay tuned, because when we launch our campaign, the kind of lines of support that I see is something that you as people will have to decide for yourself, not if you want a box deal, but if you want workers of Barbados to get big bucks. You as a people will have to determine whether or not the franchise, whether or not the sacrifice that our forebears fought for us, whether you will pick up the mantle of that sacrifice. Because it's different levels. There's agitation at the company level, and there is the withdrawal of economic power. Now, too often I see companies that are not doing right by workers, expanding businesses, opening up location after location. And while I am not a business head, I get it. I get it that sometimes you have to invest to get a return. But it can't be that you owe millions upon millions of dollars to the people of Barbados. It can't be that you are undermining and disenfranchising the workers of Barbados, and you're still allowed to open up new businesses in this country. And there will be a time when there has to be a boycott, and that time is coming very soon. And I say to you, Minister of Labour, I say to you, Minister of Finance, I say to you, Prime Minister of Barbados, and I say to you, the government of Barbados that I am a part of, I say to you that it is not enough for workers to have a job. It is not enough for us to be hearing the governor of the central bank reporting to us, as we like to hear, that there is economic growth and that unemployment is decreasing. What matters to us in the House of Labour is that where people have jobs, there are jobs that guarantee them a decent condition and decent rates of pay. And that is where I raise the point again, as I did on the floor during our discussions back in February on the Labour Concessions Bill, and in my response to the budgetary proposals. Hasten the minimum wage act. Hasten the increase in the minimum wage. And if the board of the minimum wage board is not functioning, Minister, get it functioning, because we are now over a month since the budget, and I have not heard that the board has met, and I have to hear because they have representatives on the board. I'm saying, and I say again, it is good to see unemployment decreasing. But what we need to see across Barbados and what we fight for at the company level and the fight we will maintain at the national level, it is not good enough until decent work becomes the order of the day. And that is what the Executive Council of the Barbados, through me, committed to you last year when we undertook to use the hotel workers to make the hotel workers the example of what every other worker in Barbados can achieve when they see themselves, they see their value, they recognize that there's dignity in their work that they do, and all of you have the opportunity when we come to you to do it. I am not going to go any further in any discussions. I am going to only implore you in those moments where you're not in the celebratory mood that will follow shortly after I speak, to reflect. If you don't remember anything else that I have said in the last few minutes, I ask you to see yourself first of all. Many of us want people to see us. I want people to do for us. But I want to challenge you to see yourself first of all. See your worth. Remember that there is dignity in your labor. And remember that the price that we have to pay for our freedom, the price that we have to pay for the progress we want, the price that we have to pay for the change we want to see is our eternal vigilance. I love you, people of Botanical Gardens. I love you, workers of Barbados. Solidarity, solidarity, unity is, it's about you too. I love you. Thank you.